In 1958, Hollywood was rocked by a scandal that seemed too sensational to be true. A glamorous movie star, her troubled gangster boyfriend, and a teenage daughter at the center of a sudden, violent death. It had all the elements of a film noir, except this story unfolded in real life. Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato became forever linked by one of the most infamous tragedies in the history of Los Angeles, a story that revealed the uneasy intersection between Hollywood's glittering surface and the darker forces moving beneath it. Lana Turner had been a Hollywood star for more than 2 decades by the time of the scandal. Discovered as a teenager in the 1930s, she rose quickly at MGM, where she was branded the Sweater Girl and transformed into one of the studio's most glamorous leading ladies. Her roles in films like The Postman Always Rings Twice and Peyton Place made her a household name. Off-screen, though, Turner's life was less stable. She went through a series of marriages and high-profile romances, each of them closely followed by tabloids hungry for stories about Hollywood's golden icons. By the 1950s, Turner was as famous for her personal life as for her career. That was the world into which Johnny Stompanato entered. Stompanato was not an actor or a producer. He was a former Marine who had become a bodyguard and associate of Los Angeles mobster Mickey Cohen. Handsome and stylish, Stompanato moved easily in social circles where celebrity and organized crime overlapped. To some, he was charming, even charismatic, but others saw a darker side. Accounts from those who knew him describe him as controlling and often violent, a man who used both his connections and his temper to maintain power in relationships. When Turner and Stompanato began dating in 1957, the match raised eyebrows. Hollywood stars had often been linked to men with questionable reputations, but this relationship was different. Friends and colleagues described Stompanato as possessive, showing up uninvited to sets, demanding Turner's attention, and even threatening actors who worked with her. Turner, who had already endured her share of turbulent romances, seemed caught between attraction and fear. The relationship reached its breaking point in April 1958. On the evening of April 4th, Turner and Stompanato began arguing in her Beverly Hills home. Witnesses later described the fight as heated and frightening. Turner's daughter, 14-year-old Cheryl Crane, overheard the shouting. According to Cheryl's later testimony, she feared for her mother's safety. In the middle of the confrontation, Cheryl entered the room holding a kitchen knife. In the struggle that followed, Stompanato was stabbed once in the abdomen. The wound severed his aorta and punctured his liver. He collapsed almost instantly, and efforts to save him failed. The aftermath was immediate and overwhelming. News of Stompanato's death spread quickly, and the involvement of a movie star's teenage daughter ensured sensational coverage. Tabloid photographers camped outside Turner's house, while reporters speculated wildly about what had really happened. Within days, the case was the top headline across the country. The inquest into Stompanato's death drew enormous attention. Turner herself took the stand, tearfully recounting the abusive nature of her relationship with Stompanato. She described incidents where he had threatened her, as well as the fear she felt in the hours before his death. Cheryl, just a teenager, testified about what she witnessed and why she acted. The jury ruled that the killing was justifiable homicide. Cheryl had, they concluded, acted in defense of her mother, and no criminal charges were filed. Legally, the case was closed. But in the court of public opinion, questions lingered. Rumors swirled that Turner herself had delivered the fatal blow, and that her daughter had been protected by the official version of events. Others speculated that MGM and Turner's Hollywood connections had influenced the outcome to preserve her career. None of these claims were ever proven, but they became part of the mythology surrounding the case. For Lana Turner, the scandal could have ended her career. Instead, it coincided with an unexpected resurgence. Later that year, she starred in Imitation of Life, a Douglas Sirk melodrama that became one of the most successful films of her career. Critics praised her performance, and audiences turned out in huge numbers. The film's success gave Turner a second act in Hollywood, though the Stompanato affair remained a shadow over her personal life. For Cheryl Crane, the impact was lifelong. At 14, she had been thrust into a media circus she never asked for. In the years that followed, she struggled with her identity and with public perception shaped by the tragedy. As an adult, she published memoirs offering her side of the story, describing the abuse she had witnessed and the fear that motivated her actions that night. While she was legally cleared, Cheryl lived with the weight of having taken a life at such a young age. Johnny Stompanato's death also exposed the close ties between Hollywood and organized crime. Mickey Cohen's syndicate had long cultivated connections to celebrities and nightclubs, and Stompanato was one of the men who bridged those worlds. His romance with Turner wasn't an isolated story. It was part of a broader reality in mid-century Los Angeles, where mobsters and stars often moved in the same circles. For the public, the case offered a rare glimpse into those hidden connections. The tragedy also sparked broader conversations about domestic violence, though in the 1950s the topic was rarely discussed openly. Turner's testimony about Stompanato's threats and abuse shocked audiences unused to hearing a glamorous movie star speak about being trapped in a violent relationship. While the conversation was limited at the time, later generations have looked back on the case as an early example of how domestic abuse, often hidden behind closed doors, could escalate to deadly consequences. Even decades later, the Lana Turner Johnny Stompanato scandal remains one of Hollywood's most infamous stories. It combined the glamour of stardom with the grit of organized crime, the innocence of a teenage daughter with the violence of an abusive relationship, and the public's fascination with both celebrity and tragedy. For Los Angeles, it was another chapter in the city's long history of stories where image and reality collided. Today, Turner is remembered as one of the defining actresses of classic Hollywood, a woman whose career spanned decades despite personal turmoil. Cheryl Crane is remembered as the teenager caught in an unimaginable situation, who later built a life outside the glare of her mother's fame. And Stompanato is remembered less for his own life than for the way it ended, violently, in a moment that captured the dark underside of Hollywood's golden age. The story endures because it reflects so many of Los Angeles' contradictions. It's a city built on dreams but haunted by shadows, a place where glamour and danger often share the same stage. The death of Johnny Stompanato wasn't just a Hollywood scandal, it was a tragedy that revealed how fragile the line between fantasy and reality could be.